What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kenahan. This week's episode, we have a lot to get through. It feels like every week now, with the offseason now approaching, and now here, we've got a lot to get through for the Washington Commanders. Again, this is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, offseason in Washington Commanders history. We'll start right off. We've got the roundup, the agenda for this week's episode. We've got the entire coaching staff being revealed for the Washington Commanders. We're going to be going over the offensive staff. We're going to be going over the defensive staff as well. Then we've got my first full 32 picks, full first round mock draft I did for the Right Way Sports Network the other week. So we're going to be going over that, going over some of the key picks there that were made, and basically also who Washington picked and why I picked them. Because, I mean, to some of you, it might seem as a shock. Some of you, not so much, but some of you might seem as a shock. And then at the very end, of course, we're going to be doing that weekly mock draft segment that I've talked about in last week's episode. Basically, just going to be picking a random listener. Again, you can send me your mock draft on Twitter at Mason Kenahan. But I just picked someone, and we're going to be going over their mock draft. So let's just jump right into it, because we've got a lot to get through. But the entire coaching staff for the Washington Commanders has been revealed. It was revealed on Thursday, right before the press conferences for Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, and Joe Witt, the defensive coordinator. So I've talked about the staff a little bit already in terms of kind of who's staying and some early announcements that were made. But I'm just going to go through some of the big names that were kind of kept. Tavita Pritchard, the quarterback's coach, I think I talked about this in last week's pod as well, is staying in Washington. A lot of other teams wanted him, chose to stay in Washington under the new regime with Dan Quinn. I like that. It's good with me. I think it's a great hire, a great idea to keep him at quarterback, especially with Sam Howell. I know it's most likely not going to be the case. We're going to roll into next year with Sam Howell as a starting quarterback. But I think as well, when you have a young quarterback that did show promise and has the physical tools to potentially be a guy in the NFL, has the athletic traits. I'm not saying he's going to be, but has the athletic traits to possibly be a guy in the NFL, be a starter. I think making sure he develops on the same person is great. Keeping Tavita Pritchard as a quarterback's coach does just that. Bobby Ingram was kept as the wide receivers coach. He's done a great job developing Terry McLaurin. He's done a great job developing Jahan Dotson as well. I know last year was kind of a disappointing season for Jahan Dotson. I don't really see it as the case of Dotson regressed. I see it more of it was an Eric Bieniemy problem with the scheme and with Jahan Dotson's skill set. So, again, he's helped develop Jahan Dotson. He was a great player his rookie season. Really was kind of an offensive rookie of the year candidate before going down with his injury. So, Washington kept Bobby Ingram as well. As for the new guys on offense, we're going to start with the tight ends coach, David Ray. Ray, the tight ends coach for the Washington Commanders, coming over from Tampa last year, actually. But he was in Arizona as the wide receivers coach, and I think he was also the tight ends coach there for a little bit as well with Cliff Kingsbury. So David Ray, he's kind of more a wide receiver. He's spent time at wide receiver. He's also spent time at tight end, so he's not just a tight end specific guy. He does come in as a tight ends coach, though. Last season in Tampa, we saw what that offense did last year. He was a senior offensive analyst in Tampa Bay last year, so he had a pretty big say in that as well with Dave Canales and all of those guys that led that offense with Baker Mayfield. A team, the Bucs, that made it to the second round of the playoffs last year, not something that many people saw coming. So it was a great season from that offense. Moving on to offensive line. Well, hold on. I'll do grades. I'll do grades for like an A through F grade on each hire. I'm gonna give this one tight ends coach. I'm gonna give this one probably a B minus. I think it's a solid hire, but again, he was over with Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. I just don't have that much going off of him. I think I'm gonna actually drop it to a C plus. I just don't really have that much going off of him and what he's been able to do. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to be able to do with these tight ends. Will Logan Thomas still be here next year? My guess is no. But what is he going to be able to do with Cole Turner, John Bates? If we bring in another young guy in the draft, he's going to have a very young tight end room, and it's going to be interesting to see how he helps develop them. So I'd give that higher C plus. Moving on to offensive line. Oh my goodness. Moving on to offensive line. Bobby Johnson is brought over from the New York Giants. Bobby Johnson was with the Bills, was the offensive line coach there for a little bit, and then followed Brian Daboll to New York to be the offensive line coach for the New York Giants. Well, the unit overall in New York, that offense it hasn't been great this season nor last season, but the offensive line unit overall isn't been great either. It's been one of the worst in the league each of the last 2 seasons. They brought in some top tier talent. They've had Andrew Thomas there for a while. They signed him, I believe, to an extension as well. So, and they've kind of failed to develop him so far through 2 seasons. They failed to develop Evan Neal as well, one of their top 10 picks back in the 2022 NFL draft. So those are 2 top premier, talented, athletic players, young players that have been failed to develop to their ceiling, or to pretty much their ceiling as prospects in New York. So this hire, I'm gonna give a D. That you can make a case that the unit was already bad to begin with, and Bobby Johnson just didn't improve it. I can really see that case. That's why I'm going to give it a D and not an F here. I don't like this hire. I'd rather have hired someone else than him because, again, he's led one of the worst units each of the last 2 seasons in New York. But, again, we can also say that this unit was also bad before he got there. So, it's kind of a which way do you want to interpret it. So, I'm going to give it a D. Definitely like the tight end coach hire, though, more than the offensive line hire. Coming in at assistant quarterbacks coach will be David Blau, the former quarterback for the Detroit Lions, the Cleveland Browns, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Minnesota Vikings. I like this hire. I mean, Blau, he hasn't coached yet. This is how he's going to start his coaching journey. But again, he's been kind of like a practice squad player over the last few seasons. He's a practice squad player in Detroit this year. You could, or in 2023. He was with Arizona for a little bit as well. So, I mean, he's most known for his time in Detroit from, I believe, 2019 to 2022. I can be off maybe a year or 2 there, but he's most known for his time in Detroit. I like this hire, especially with him working with Tavita Pritchard. Pritchard, a very highly sought-after positional coach. And, again, I can't wait to see the growth and the development that not only the players under Pritchard and Blau hopefully have, but just Pritchard and Blau themselves as coaches become better coaches and move up the ranks, because I can really see both of those guys potentially being offensive coordinators one day. So I'm excited. Those are 2 very young coaches, and I'm excited to see what's next for those guys and for the quarterback room in general. I'm pretty happy with the quarterback coaching and the guys that potentially a new rookie quarterback would come in and be developed under. Pritchard, an amazing hire when it was first made last year. I really liked it a lot. And then Blau as well. So two coaches that I think could definitely move up the ranks at some point. Now, I think that was all of the offensive guys that were new. Oh, Anthony Lynn. You haven't talked about Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn coming over as the running backs coach in Washington and the run game coordinator. I put out a tweet about this. I think it was when it just happened. I know it happened last week. I like this hire for Washington. It will be interesting to see what type of run game he brings. I think his scheme with Brian Robinson is definitely great. He had a lot of success with Melvin Gordon in Los Angeles, and then once Austin Eckler kind of came in, he was a little bit off, and then now he's been with San Francisco over the last few seasons after getting fired in LA, and that run game has been great in San Francisco. It's been great. It was ranked number 1 in efficiency last year with Christian McCaffrey at running back in the offensive line. So he's going to bring a lot of outside zone. That's what the West Coast scheme. That's what San Francisco ran a lot of last year. Pin and pull stuff. There's going to be a lot of definitely West Coast scheme coming in from Anthony Lynn. I like the hire. Just talk about the experience with this offensive line. Not offensive line, with this offensive coaching staff. Anthony Lynn coming in, a former head coach. Brian Johnson, a former offensive coordinator who was definitely, before being the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, was one of the most sought after positional coaches in the entire league. Cliff Kingsbury, a former NFL coach as well, as offensive coordinator. So those guys I love. And Andre Coleman as well is going to be coming in as an offensive assistant for Washington. I'm going to do some stuff on him now because I'm not going to lie, I forgot about him a little bit. But yeah, came over from Texas. He was a wide receivers coach there from 2020 to 2021. Hasn't really coached since 2021, but coming in as an offensive assistant, not much on him. Kind of just been in college over the last from 2010 to 2021. We'll see what happens with that. Now moving on. I just realized I didn't even change the stuff to the offensive staff if you're watching the video. So that was the offensive staff. The defensive staff now. The defensive staff. So okay, we'll start up front. We'll start with the guys in the trenches. D-line coach Dale Tapp, former Washington player. Again, a great hire for Washington. He was the assistant defensive line coach in San Francisco. He's been that since 2021. You could really tell with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn bringing in Anthony Lynn from San Francisco, Dale Tapp from San Francisco. You could really see that connection working with Adam Peters. Now, does this mean Chase Young could potentially have a return to Washington this offseason? Now with him hitting the open market in a month and his assistant defensive line coach now going to Washington, could we potentially see that? I don't know, but if I just say right now, I don't think we do. I think Chase Young's time in Washington is going to be over, but that'd definitely be something to keep an eye on, especially with the new hire of Dale Tapp. I would give this hire. I don't remember if I graded the other hires, but I would give this hire a B+. I'm excited about this hire. He's going to be coming in with guys like Jonathan Allen on this roster, Daron Payne. Seems like both of those guys will be on this team in 2024 or week 1 of 2024. And he has some younger guys as well. Andre Jones Jr., the rookie 7th round pick from last year, KJ Henry, the rookie 5th round pick that Ron Rivera traded up for out of Clemson last year. I know a lot of teams were actually pretty high on him. So again, KJ Henry, a guy that we saw break out a little bit towards the second half of the season. So I really like this hire. He's going to potentially bring in another young guy in the draft as well. I would not be opposed to that, to bringing in another edge rusher with how thin right now our edge rushers are going to be. We definitely are going to be bringing in a veteran free agency edge rusher, because right now we have 3 edge rushers right now under contract: KJ Henry, Andre Jones, and then some other guys. So we're gonna need to bring in we're gonna need to bring in some more edge rushers. I think we're gonna sign 1 or 2 during free agency, and then draft 1 or 2 during the draft as well. Moving on to linebacker, Ken Norton Jr. I'm giving this hire an A. It's a great hire in my opinion. You know what? I'll just give it an A+. This is probably a top 2 hire that Washington made on this assistant staff. I have to think of someone better. I just don't want to forget anyone. That's why I'm saying it's top 2. But probably to bringing in someone new, it's the best hire Washington made. Yeah, I would say it's the best hire Washington made. As a positional coach, Ken Norton Jr., the linebackers coach, he was the defensive coordinator in Seattle from 2018 to 2021. From what I've done some research on him. I've talked with some Seahawks fans and some people that are really into the Seahawks, and basically asked them, hey, well, what is Ken Norton? What does he like to do? What are his tendencies? All of that. As a defensive coordinator, I know he was kind of a little bit controversial in Seattle. But from what I got out of it, I got Ken Norton. It was a little bit questionable play calling when he was in Seattle as a defensive coordinator, but he was the linebackers coach for them from 2010 to 2014, and he was a great positional coach. And that's what he's going to be in Washington. He's going to be a positional coach. He helped coach up that Legion of Boom that they had in Seattle in the 2010s. He helped coach up Bobby Wagner, Bruce Irvin, helped develop those guys. I'm excited for this hire. And when you look at guys like Jamin Davis potentially being in a Micah Parsons-like role in this Dan Quinn defense, I love it. I love it. Jamin Davis is going to be a guy that I could maybe see as a breakout player next year. Once more, we have the option to pick up his 5th-year option this offseason in May. We're going to see if that happens. If I had to make a guess, I don't think it does. But I could definitely see a breakout year next year for Jamin Davis in his 4th season. Ken Norton, A+ hire, in my opinion, for Washington. Now going to the DBs, Tom Donatel as the DB coach, was with the Chargers as the DB coach there for the last few seasons. And I think it was the DB coach or maybe the pass game coordinator as well in Los Angeles for the last few seasons. I'm not really impressed with this hire. I'd probably give it like a C-. The Chargers have been getting their defenses have been getting lit up over the last few seasons, especially this season. And I know they had a lot of talent, and they didn't really live up to that talent. You can say he developed Derwin James. Derwin James kind of had a down year last year. And then Asante Samuel, a guy that a lot of people had high hopes for, has been kind of up and down. Michael Davis had a good year in 2022. Actually, was one of the, not this season, but the season before that was one of the best nickel cornerbacks in the game, really, that year. But beyond that, there isn't really much to go off of. You had J.C. Jackson. That experiment failed in Los Angeles. So it was kind of up and down in L.A., and so that I'd give it a C-. I don't think it's the worst hire Washington made, but I would not say it's the best hire at all. So it does bring a lot of experience, though, and that's kind of something with all of these defensive coaches, Ken Norton, Dale Tapp, Tom Donatel, Joe Witt, Dan Quinn. This is a loaded defensive staff, and I think this defense is really going to go from one of the worst, if not it was the worst in the NFL last season, to probably into the top half pretty easily. I would say there's a good chance that this defense becomes a top 15 defense next year. There's just too much talent, especially if you bring back Cam Curl, if you get improved play from Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin. That's really going to be the key with these defensive backs. Can Tom Donatel and Jason Simmons help develop Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin and some of the younger pieces in the secondary? That's going to be a big thing. That's going to be a big decision on, or that's going to be a big play a big part of, do we bring back Kendall Fuller or not? Is Tom Donatel and Jason Simmons, do they want to develop Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin into two of the top or two starting corners and nickel on this team? So I'm excited. That's kind of the staff that I have. I will say one that I think was kind of under the radar was the coaching chief of staff that Washington hired, Sarah Hogan from Atlanta. It was a massive hire, and I don't think it's getting really talked about enough, because she came over from the Falcons, and I was looking back at Raheem Morris's press conference, and he was praising her a ton. He was like, he's looking forward to working with her and helping build the coaching staff. Again, Sarah Hogan's one of the premier like coaching chiefs of staffs in the NFL. Very well respected and sought out from many teams. Comes to Washington, and I like the staff that the team built this year. We're going to see how it goes. I know it's kind of some unproven guys, some guys looking for second chances like Cliff Kingsbury, Dan Quinn. You can really say a lot of these coaches are coaches looking for second chances with pretty much nothing else to lose. Brian Johnson as well. So I like this staff. I think they can definitely make some noise next year. It's just, can they develop the young players already on this roster that must be kept, like Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin? Those two guys will be on the team week 1 next year. I'd be surprised. I'd be stunned. I'd be stunned if they weren't on the team next year, as they're only rookies on the rookie contract. Can the coaches develop these players? That's going to be the big question. But yeah, that was it pretty much on the defensive staff. Now I wanted to get into something that was pretty cool, and that is my first round mock draft. My first round mock draft came to TWSN, or was posted on TWSN last week. I made a video on their YouTube channel, the Right Way Sports Network, breaking down every pick. I don't want to break down every pick, but I do want to talk about some of the top or most surprising stuff that happened in this mock draft. So we'll start with number 1. We'll start with the top 5 picks. It went Caleb Williams to the Bears, Drake Maye to Washington, Marvin Harrison Jr. to New England, Malik Neighbors to Arizona, and Rome Odunze to Los Angeles. So Caleb Williams picked with Chicago, I feel like, is probably 80%, 85% going to happen unless another team trades up to number 1. I don't really see them picking a quarterback other than Caleb Williams. For Washington and selecting Drake Maye, I just like Drake Maye over Jayden Daniels. He's my guy. I think Drake Maye can definitely be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. I don't really see a longevity with Jayden Daniels, the sustainability that Jayden Daniels has after his 5th year this year. And I mean, it's been kind of an up and down. Oh, he's steadily impressed after every season. That's what's eye catching about him as a prospect. He has improved every season in college, but I just don't think it's sustainable in the NFL. His play style, he was missing open reads. He was making stuff harder than it needed to be at LSU. And Drake Maye, I feel like, has the guy. You can't just say, oh, Drake Maye is just Sam Howell 2.0, because it's not. Sam Howell is 6 foot. Drake Maye is 6'4". Drake Maye is a lot bigger than Sam Howell. Drake Maye is a lot more polished prospect than Sam Howell. Drake Maye has the higher ceiling than Sam Howell, in my opinion. So I just have Drake Maye going to Washington at number 2. Number 3, the Patriots kind of shocked a lot of I would say the Patriots kind of shocked, made a shocking pick and selected Marvin Harrison Jr. Best prospect in the draft, in my opinion. The quarterbacks will definitely go first, but I really think New England does go with a wide receiver or an offensive tackle over Jayden Daniels. I think Jayden Daniels does fall past number 3. With Elliott Wolf leading the charge for the Patriots in this draft process, I really think he's going to fall in love with Marvin Harrison or a left tackle or offensive lineman over a quarterback, because this roster for New England is just so far away from competing. It's farther away from competing than Washington's roster right now. So, again, you can make the argument for Washington to go that route too and pick a wide receiver or a left tackle over a quarterback. But Washington's roster, in my opinion, is way too talented to wait on a quarterback another year. Again, the quarterback class next year is not looking great right now. So I definitely go quarterback this year if I was Washington. Arizona going Malik Neighbors. Kind of worst case scenario. I think in this case, they would probably trade back. In my opinion, I didn't do any trade backs in this one, but Malik Neighbors to Arizona and Rome Odunze to Los Angeles. Both of those picks would probably be traded back, or one of them would be for a team like the New York Giants at number 6, who select Jayden Daniels right there to trade up and select Jayden Daniels. But yeah, I have Jayden Daniels going to the Giants at number 6. I think he could definitely do some damage in Daboll's offense. But again, I'm just not that high on Jayden Daniels as a prospect. I still have him here going number 6. Number 8, Nate Wiggins is my favorite cornerback in this class. He's going to be my cornerback 1, most likely, unless I haven't watched Quinyon Mitchell yet. But if Quinyon Mitchell is just incredible, insane, then it'll be Mitchell. But Nate Wiggins is my favorite corner in this class. I have him going to Atlanta. The duo between Wiggins on one side, AJ Terrell on the other side, will be one of the best duos at corner in the entire league. Scrolling down a little bit, going to number 11, I have the Minnesota Vikings selecting Bo Nix out of Oregon. I think the Vikings here, with most likely, it seems like going to be losing Kirk Cousins in free agency. They can't really franchise tag him. It's too expensive. I think they go Bo Nix here. I think Kevin O'Connell will fall in love with Bo Nix and kind of that like McVay offense that O'Connell brought to Minnesota. I think he could fall in love with Bo Nix. Bo Nix could run that offense really well. So that's why I have him going at 11 to Minnesota. Number 12, I have the Denver Broncos selecting J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback out of Michigan. So McCarthy to the Broncos, I think I love this pick more and more. Every day I wake up and I'm just like, okay, J.J. McCarthy is a Denver Bronco, because this pick just makes too much sense. Bo Nix to the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy to Denver, or maybe flip-flop them if you want. But those two teams need quarterbacks, and those are the two guys that they're going to pick, Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, only 20 years old, one of the youngest prospects in this draft. There's been a ton of reports saying that he's going to go a lot higher than people are saying, or that fans are saying, and I definitely can see it. I'm one of the people that are high on J.J. McCarthy. I have a late first-round grade on him. I know some people don't even have a first-round grade on him, and with how young he is, the upside is there. He's 6'2", I believe, or 6'3". The upside, I could see an NFL team falling in love with him, and I could definitely see Sean Payton falling in love with him and JJ McCarthy being Russell Wilson's replacement. That could definitely happen. Going down a little bit more, just kind of looking at some other picks that stood out to me. Terrion Arnold to the Los Angeles Rams at 19 is a pick I love. The Rams don't have a true cornerback one right now. I would say that can be dominant after trading away Jalen Ramsey. Terrion Arnold can be that guy. He can be dominant. Scrolling down a little more. Okay, Troy Fautanu to the Dallas Cowboys at 24. I love this pick because with Tyron Smith now being a free agent, he's probably not going to be on the team next year one way or another. Either going to retire or probably going to go to a different team or maybe sign in like July. But I don't think he's going to be on the Cowboys roster by the time the draft rolls around. Tyler Smith, the left guard for Dallas, is going to move over to left tackle with Tyron Smith leaving, as that was the plan all along. You can push Troy Fautanu, who played left tackle at Washington, inside to left guard and have Tyler Smith at left tackle, Troy Fautanu at left guard. That's a great duo. You've pretty much built your left side of your offensive line for the next 8-9 years by having Tyler Smith at left tackle and Troy Fautanu at left guard. So I really like this pick for Dallas. Tampa Bay, they're most likely going to be losing Mike Evans, it looks like, in free agency. I would not be surprised. I think I mentioned it before that Mike Evans could go to Carolina. Would not be surprised at that at all. But bringing in a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. to replace Mike Evans is something that I love for Tampa Bay. I love this pick for Tampa Bay. Brian Thomas is one of my guys in this draft. I think I have a mid-first on him, I believe. Maybe a little bit less than that, but mid-first. The Bucs getting him at 26 right here is a steal. And then a pretty big-time edge rusher fell to the Cardinals at 27. Laitu Latu fell to the Cardinals at 27. The Cardinals will be sprinting up to the podium to select this guy. Had a great Senior Bowl, was dominant at the Senior Bowl. The question for him will be his medicals. In this scenario, a lot of other pass rushers like Chop Robinson, Dallas Turner went ahead of him. And then another pick that I like, A.D. Mitchell to the Kansas City Chiefs would it would be insane. It would be. I mean, look at the Chiefs right now. They won the Super Bowl. They just won the Super Bowl last week. And adding a guy like A.D. Mitchell to a wide receiver group that is not that great, but has a young guy like Rashee Rice, you add A.D. Mitchell. I mean, you're just adding weapons for Mahomes. Like, what is the team going to do about it? If you couldn't beat Mahomes this year, when are you ever going to beat Mahomes? So that was kind of the rundown or a little bit of a recap on my mock draft. Again, if you want to see the full thing for all 32 picks, I'll have the link in the description for the article and also for the video version I did on the Right Way Sports Network or TWSN YouTube channel. So that was my first round mock. Now I want to go to your guys' first round mocks. I just realized I don't have a graphic for it. Oh well, but now going to your guys' not just first round mocks, but just Commanders mock drafts. I have at Hey It's Cole, like the thing Cole, not like the name, but like the thing Cole _ he says, here's a mock I put together. Okay, so this mock draft, pick number 2, the Washington Commanders select Drake Maye, quarterback out of UNC, out of North Carolina. I've talked about it already in this episode. Great pick. I would say at number 2 would be an awesome pick. Would not be mad at it. Pick number 36 in the second round, the Washington Commanders select Jordan Morgan, the tackle out of Arizona. I really like this pick as well. I don't know if Morgan's going to be there at 36. I think a lot of the guys in the a lot of teams in the late first round, early second round, teams could be trading up really early into the second round. Well, you kind of see that on the morning of day 2 and the afternoon of day 2, where you see some teams trading up into the 33rd, 34th, 35th, 36th picks. I think Washington could possibly trade up to 33. Maybe if they want to get a tackle like Jordan Morgan, I could definitely see it happening. Round 2, pick 40. Christian Haynes, the guard out of Connecticut, out of UConn. He had a great Senior Bowl. I really liked watching him in Mobile and would not be mad at this pick at all. Christian Haynes, not a lot of Washington fans are really talking about him potentially being a pick at number 40, but I could definitely see this staff falling in love with a guard like him and making Christian Haynes the future probably left guard would be pretty solid because I don't know what's happening at left guard right now. So I like that pick. Maybe you could say it's a little bit of a reach. I would agree with that. It's a little bit of a reach, but I like that pick. Round 3, pick number 67, Jeremiah Trotter, the linebacker out of Clemson. I talked about adding a guy like Ken Norton to your coaching staff and the development of Jamin Davis, the development of Jeremiah Trotter, as that is a very popular name that a lot of Washington fans are picking right now in that 3rd to 4th round range. Jeremiah Trotter would be huge for Washington. And pairing him up with Jamin Davis as the LB1 and LB2 on this team, I would love it. I think it would be great, especially if Jamin Davis plays more of a pass rusher role. He kind of plays more on the line of scrimmage, plays more of an on-ball linebacker, and Trotter plays more of an off-ball linebacker. I like it a lot. Round 3, pick 101, Mo Kamara, the edge rusher out of Colorado State, a guy that is going under the radar right now, in my opinion, in the draft process. I think Kamara could definitely find his way into day 2. I love this pick for Washington. I think he's worth a day 2 pick. He had a monster game against Colorado earlier it was like way early in the college football season. He's a great pass rusher. A lot of different pass rushing moves. He's big. I like this pick a lot for Washington. Round 4, pick 103, Malik Washington, the wide receiver out of UVA. I think Washington, he had a monster Shrine Bowl where did they host? Dallas or Frisco. Dallas or Frisco. They have at AT&T Stadium. Malik Washington had a monster Shrine Bowl for himself, boosted his draft stock a ton, and I really think the trend, we see a lot of these smaller. I was listening to a podcast. I don't really remember what podcast the other day, but the host mentioned, man, I really wish I remembered now, but the host mentioned that we're seeing a lot of these teams. I think a lot of these teams too could be adding smaller wide receivers in this draft. I know in the past we've seen smaller wide receivers kind of fall down boards in the draft, but guys like Taj Washington, Malik Washington, guys that can separate. We saw Roman Wilson as well do it in Mobile. Guys that can separate and create separation, be college open in the NFL, will get drafted highly, or get drafted higher than expected. You look at guys right now like Tank Dell in Houston, in a monster season that he had for the Texans before tearing his ACL. He had a huge season. And there's some other younger examples we can see as well that are just great at creating separation. Cooper Kupp, great at creating separation. So Malik Washington is great at creating separation. He's a tiny wide receiver, but great at creating separation, and that's the appeal. And I'm appealed. So I like that pick in the 4th round. 5th round, Kalen King, the cornerback out of Penn State. I gotta look at what grade I gave Kalen King. I don't think I actually did him yet. I don't think I've done him yet. But in the 5th round, it does seem like you might think it's a steal getting Kalen King in the 5th round. I think that's probably going to be where I'm going to have him, 4th, 5th round, somewhere around there, because I just think Kalen King is he didn't have a great year this year. He was kind of expected to be in the top 20, 25 heading into this season, potential pick, and he's kind of fallen off into, I don't know if he's going to go day 2. I don't know if he's going to go day 2. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But getting him in the 5th round, boosting that defensive backs, having Kalen King, Emmanuel Forbes, Quan Martin, a lot of these young guys, I would love that pick. Frank Gore Jr. out of Southern Miss. Yes, you heard that right. Frank Gore Jr. out of Southern Miss, the running back out of Southern Miss, in the 6th round at pick 181. I think Gore, he was a production machine at Southern Miss over the last 3-4 years. So I think it's a fine pick. I feel like we could work more on the he kind of hit with this mock draft. He kind of hit all the positions of need. Maybe in the 6th round here, this is where I would go. Is Theo Johnson on the board at this time? I don't think he will be. But is AJ Barner, is Ben Sinnott, is one of these tight ends on the board that have fallen a little bit? This is where I would select that tight end. Potentially in the 5th round too, I would select that tight end as well. This mock draft doesn't have a tight end, which is a position of need. But again, I think we're fine at running back. We can probably sign one in free agency. I have a bad feeling we're gonna sign Austin Eckler or something, but hey, yeah, I don't know. It's just a gut feeling, but I feel like we're going to sign Austin Eckler or something in free agency, and we're probably not going to need a running back in the draft. But again, Frank Gore, 6th-round pick. Can't really be mad at it. And then the 7th-round tackle out of Howard, Neem Dankwa, staying in the DMV area. So I think it's a great pick, just kind of getting a project guy at tackle that would kind of, I mean, he doesn't really have a incredibly high ceiling, but more of like a project tackle. He can fight for a roster spot. You already got Jordan Morgan and Christian Haynes early on day 2. Adding a guy like Dankwa in the 7th round as well could be like a low risk, high reward. I wouldn't say it's incredibly high reward, but if you can be a depth piece, a solid depth piece, that'd be great. So overall, I'd give this mock draft from at @HeyIt'sCole_. I'd give this mock draft a solid B+. I think it was a great mock. I like the May pick, like the Morgan pick, like the Haynes pick, the Trotter, the Kamara pick as well. Some stuff could be changed. You know what? I'll give this an A-. I'll give this an A-. I felt like I like a lot of these picks. These picks are all solid. There wasn't really any that I feel like was a big miss. Maybe the Malik Washington pick is kind of just like a Curtis Samuel replacement. The Frank Gore pick was a little odd. So if you can get a Taj Washington in the 6th round out of USC, who's kind of like Malik Washington, but a little bit worse of a prospect in my opinion. But if you can get Taj Washington in the 6th round and then pick up a tight end in the 4th round, like Theo Johnson or an AJ Barner, I think, or Ben Sinnott as well, I think that'd be great. So that'd probably make it an A+. I'd give this an A-. Overall, good job. I like this mock. It was great. So yeah, that's it. That'll do it for as the plane goes by. That'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. We're gonna have some more guests on soon, so get ready for that. I'm excited because I'm definitely gonna be trying to get some of these prospects on along with some other people, some other Washington fans that you guys may know as well. So the combine is what? The combine is 2 weeks away. The free agency starts in pretty much 1 month from now. The coaching staff is filled out. The offseason is here. I'm excited because this is going to be a massive offseason for Washington Commanders fans. Next week, I'm probably going to be coming out with some of my combine stuff. Again, you can check out my work at Mason Kenahan on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it. Plus on TWSN.net, you can see where I write words and I put words into articles. That's where I do that. So that you can read my stuff over there as well. But yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. Thank you guys for watching or listening to this episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys in the next one. Peace.